So, Molly, we've had this parade of Republicans down at the courthouse to support the former president. He's used this perhaps cleverly and strategically as a way around the gag order. I'm not saying anything. It's just them saying exactly what I told them to say. And today, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Mike Johnson, is going to be down at the courthouse, along with Doug Burgum, apparently doing the business of the good people of North Dakota by being at a courthouse in Lower Manhattan, Congressman Byron Daniels and Corey Mills of Florida, and Vivek Ramaswamy, who, of course, ran against Donald Trump in that Republican primary. What do you make of this spectacle of Republicans running to his side?
Well, so there are two things going on here. One is the Veep stakes, right? These people are running for vice president. Trump has lucked into a situation where they're so desperate to be his vice president. By the way, learning nothing from Mike Pence. I mean, how did this turn out for Mike Pence? And they're just parading down there to defend their guy. And I think Trump has gotten very lucky there. Speaker Johnson this is like a huge mistake that will have downstream effects that I don't think he quite understands. I mean, look, Republicans are trying desperately to keep the House. They have all of these frontline candidates, and he's going to go to this criminal court where Trump's fixer is testifying about his sexual relationship.
Yeah, I mean, John, running interference in a trial in which Donald Trump is alleged to have paid off a porn star for an affair he allegedly had while his wife Melania was home with their infant son. That's why they're there.
Conversely, I think that, remember, Trump bailed out Johnson a few weeks ago. Told Marjorie Taylor Greene hey, I'm not going to support your efforts to oust him. This might be Johnson trying to pay him back, or at least curry favor. And he's going to have to ward off. I mean, his job is safe for now. Democrats had said they'd come to his defense, but he's probably got to try to, feels like he has to placate the fringe right in his party, or Jen, like most of his party, who all seem to like Donald Trump.
Yeah, but it's like this guy, I mean, the Christian conservative, it's not just defending Jan 6 or something.
Right.
It's like defending the affair with the porn star. And, it is like the ugliest thing. But Trump will remember this, right? This is important to him to show up here.
But it really shows that he serves at the pleasure of Donald Trump. And not of he's not really the Speaker of the House. He really is just an arm of the Trump campaign.
So, Joe, we saw J.D. Vance yesterday, Senator Tommy Tuberville, the two of them going out doing their thing. We talked about that earlier on the show. And now the Speaker of the House of Representatives will be down there effectively campaigning and defending President Trump, former President Trump.
I just think back, and I've said this before on the show, I think back to when I was in Congress and when I couldn't walk down the street without somebody telling me, Joe, you have to impeach Bill Clinton on all 4 counts. The White House must be filled with only godly men. Joe, character still counts. We as Christians must be a city shining brightly on the hill for all the world. Joe, if you don't impeach Bill Clinton, then you are in effect saying that we are salt that has lost its seasoning. And you pick the New Testament verse. And it's all I heard from these people who said it was not only an affront to American democracy, but it was an affront to the name of Jesus Christ. And yet here we are, Molly, and yet here we are. Not only that raging hypocrisy, we have the raging By the way, let me just say, for a man who has said he has no reason to be forgiven by God. So I've never done anything that requires me to be forgiven by God. So for anybody out there saying, well, Joe's a sinner, I say, yes, I am. Yes, I can. Yeah, please. I'm not saying I'm not. I'm just saying they are going in praise of a man who has said he doesn't need Jesus Christ's forgiveness because he's never done anything wrong that is worthy of being forgiven. And then you have J.D. Vance wearing his, let's go back and wear the little vests, his little Silicon Valley Peter Millar fleece going, I love San Francisco. I love you. These are some of the greatest people in the world out here. And Willie, some of those quotes, I'm sorry, Molly, this is circuitous. Yeah. The New York Times would say it is a sprawling question, but there's just so much fun. I can't edit it down. The hypocrisy, Willie, is so amazing. Could you please share for us some of the things that J.D. Vance, Senator J.D. Vance, the guy who was the toast of the town for every elite in New York City and San Francisco, like, this is how poor white people live in Ohio. Let me explain it to you and make myself even richer, which he did before he decided, you know, that, oh, well, actually, I like Donald Trump. But it's been, as Paul McCartney would sing, a long and winding road, hasn't it, Willie?
It sure has. In 2016, he called Donald Trump reprehensible, said he was a proud... Reprehensible, said he was a proud never-Trumper. And this one that I'd forgotten but was reading earlier this morning, he called Donald Trump, quote, on PBS, cultural heroin. His point was, it feels good for a minute, but it kills you in the end. Talking about the man now he's running interference for at a New York City courthouse yesterday.
He then, Molly, sipped Chardonnay and turned and said, is this the only caviar you have? I mean, seriously, what is this, Central Ohio? That's what he said then. He also, Molly, said that Christians could not support Donald Trump. Right. Circling back to the evangelical hypocrisy here. He said in 2016 that if you were a Christian, you could not support Donald Trump.
This is what Trumpism has done to the Republican Party. You used to have people who were normal. Most of them are gone. I mean, remember Jeff Flake? I mean, there were normal Republicans, and they were basically chased to the exits. I think J.D. Vance saw the writing on the wall, and since he is a very smart guy with a very fancy Ivy League education, though he pretends not to have it, I think he decided that he was going to make the craven play that he was going to go from never Trump selling books to Trumpy Trump doing whatever it is that he is. But I mean, what is amazing to me is I just wonder if he has these like pangs of, oh my God, I have completely lied about everything, or if he's just so far in it that he forgets, you know, who he was 2 years ago.
So, Jim, when I'm going through that list of things that Willie and Joe came up with, reprehensible cultural heroin, Christians can't possibly support Trump, that was back in 2016. So I'm trying to think back. I mean, it's not that Donald Trump has changed particularly since 2016. So the only factor there in that relationship that could possibly have changed is J.D. Vance. I mean, look, J.D. Vance, to his credit, wrote a really good book. I read Hillbilly Elegy. I thought it was beautifully written. It was a very good book. But the degree, does he just map how the Republican Party has changed? Is it just that he wants that much to be vice president? Has he had a kind of, you know, complete rethink, or is this all cynical politics, do you think?
I mean, yeah, when you talked about Trump being cultural heroin, it wasn't heroin with an E. It was like, it was the bad. it was, to be clear, it was the bad heroin. But he, I mean, I went to a Trump rally where that J.D. Vance that Trump did for J.D. Vance in Detroit right before the 2022 election. And, you know, Trump would say he had some bad things to say about me, but now it's all okay because now he's going to endorse me. And that's just like the only thing that mattered in Ohio was for him to embrace Trump. And he stood there and was willing. And, you know, Tim Ryan, we'll remember that Senate race when Tim Ryan ran against him. And he played clips over and over again of how Trump, the things that Trump said about J.D. Vance that were quite derogatory after J.D. Vance had endorsed him. And, but that's what J.D. Vance was willing to do.